Hey folks, I'm going to do a solo review and a short spoiler breakdown of the things I noticed in Superman and Lois, episode 3 of season 2, The Thing in the Mines, starting now. Welcome to the Nerd Soul Show. I'm Nathan. So, the spoiler-free description of this episode is Lois reaches out to the retired General Lane. Clark's visions become worse during a heated argument with Jonathan and Jordan, and Lana shares her frustration with Kyle. This episode is actually pretty good, and actually this is my first review of the episodes for this season, and just like last season, the episodes this season have been pretty good, pretty well written, and pretty engaging for CW shows. They actually tend to be good in the first and second season, and this episode didn't disappoint. It was actually better than the episode last week. So, as it said, we got a little bit more development with Clark's story, specifically Clark's visions that he's been having. We get a bit more reveals of what's happening with Clark in this episode. Much to my surprise and enjoyment, we also get a bit more development with Jordan's storyline from last week as well, with his relationship, which I honestly didn't care about last week, but they actually wrote a pretty compelling reason for me to care about it this week. And that is also how I feel about Lana's storyline with her run for mayor. Again, last week I didn't really care about it, but this week they made me care about it by putting a different angle on it. So, all in all, I think it was a really good episode. I'm looking forward to what happens next week, given how they fleshed out some of the characters this week. There's some things going on with Jonathan and John Irons that I'm also interested to see how that develops next week, but I can't really get into that until I get into my spoiler observations. It's a recommendation for me. You should definitely go and see the episode if you haven't already. But I'm going to jump into some spoiler observations for the episode. Before I get into spoilers or some of the things that I notice, I should say, if you are enjoying the review, please like and subscribe. It helps the channel. All right, this episode starts with, as the description says, Clark losing control of his powers. He stumbles out of the air and when he tries to go to the mines, but what is most, I guess, shocking about this episode is the blow-ups that he has with Jonathan and Jordan, as the spoiler-free description mentioned. We first see this with Jordan asking to tell his secret to Sarah at the beginning of the episode. And then later on, he blows up with Jonathan at football practice when he gets in a fight with one of his teammates.
I should have been the one out there.
Dad. Jonathan, get out of here.
Dad. Don't! Dad, we need to go home now.
Just makes me think that Clark is a saint. Just thinking about how frustrating children could be. The fact that he hasn't blown up like this before, and the only reason he's blowing up like this right now is because of what's happening in the mine is just funny to me. But yeah, you could just see that he's lived a life of extreme restraint before now. So Clark actually does confront the thing in the mine, and we got a fake out over the last couple of weeks because they have dressed the antagonist in this spacesuit, which in previous incarnations of Superman you associate with Doomsday. So a lot of people thought it was Doomsday. It looked like Doomsday spacesuit, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be Doomsday. It looks like it's Bizarro based upon what we saw at the end of the episode. Or they might end up merging some of those storylines together and making Bizarro turn into Doomsday, which may or may not turn out well depending on how well they write the episodes. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes because this Bizarro doesn't seem to be as comedic and cartoonish as the Bizarros that I've seen in animation and also in comics. So we should see how they handle this because this show seems to be more grounded than Bizarro typically is interpreted. So I want to see how they handle him in this show. So moving on, some of the special effects in this episode were actually pretty awesome, especially for a television show and a CW show. Sometimes CW does special effects pretty good, but it's hit or miss. But in this episode, they handled it quite well. And this episode was actually directed by Gregory Smith, who directed lots of Arrowverse shows, including Superman and Lois, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, The Flash, Arrow. He also happened to play Ephraim on the WB show Everwood. One of the highlights from this sequence was actually John Irons jumping into that suit. It reminded me of the Iron Man suit, which was pretty cool. So speaking of Irons, the Dr. Faulkner heel turn was a lot quicker than I thought it was going to be. She turned evil, or the heroes find out that she was evil a lot quicker than I thought the writers were going to do that. I thought they were going to drag it out like they tend to do. So I really appreciate that they didn't waste our time with that. Speaking of John and also the suit, it seems that the suit is probably going to get an update based upon the conversation that John had with Natalie at the end of the episode. As I mentioned, the Jordan, Jonathan, and Lana storylines weren't really all that compelling to me last week, but factoring in the fact that he is keeping a secret from Sarah as well, and if he doesn't want to end the relationship, we'll have to deal with that sometime down the line. I think his brother Jonathan and Natalie make a good point, so that added an extra dimension to the storyline that made it a bit more interesting to me this week. And the Lana storyline specifically, I thought it was going to be pretty banal and straightforward and predictable. Lana will become mayor, but the writers didn't forget, and they reminded the audience that it won't be so easy for Lana given her past with the town.
Another thing you weren't aware of, huh? That going to be your answer when everything you're preaching now doesn't come to pass? We're supposed to vote for her over George Dean when she can't even answer a simple question.
Jonathan seemed to be a bit of an afterthought over the last couple of weeks, but it seems they're going to explore an entire storyline with him being addicted to X-Kryptonite. And it might seem like a cliche teen addiction story, but given the dynamic in his family where Jordan got his parents' attention even before he got superpowers, the writers can craft the story here with some compelling motivations for Jonathan wanting to feel special. So I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes. And finally, the Lucy, Lois, and Allie story. I'm not sure where this is going to go with Allie's cult, but the situation is intriguing to me, and I'm looking forward to see whether or not Gina Dewan shows up again as Lucy, reprising her role from season 1 of Supergirl, or if they're going to recast. And that's what I think. I want to hear what you guys think. So join the conversation by commenting down below, and I will see you next time. Bye.